Hey there, Brian Roisendel here. I'm the host of the Fit Growth Machine podcast. And today we have a great episode as we are going to talk about email marketing and sales funnels, among other interesting things. But before introducing today's guest, let me tell you that this episode is brought to you by BSR Digital. At BSR Digital, we help e-commerce brands that want to scale their business to the next level through Facebook, Instagram, and Google Ads. BSR Digital knows that most e-commerce brands want to grow their sales, but they lack a solid plan and professional team to help them succeed. That's why BSR Digital offers strategic plans, implementation, optimization, and ad account audits to help more than 1,000 e-commerce brands like yours grow their business and surpass their competitors. To learn more, you can visit us at bsrdigital.com, and you can also email us at hello@bsrdigital.com. So today, as I promised, we have a great guest. We are going to talk about some exciting things. I have Adam Moody with me, and he's the founder at Oasis Optimization. Hey, Adam, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, definitely. Good to be here. And thanks for having me, Brian.
Yeah, my pleasure. And I don't want to forget to give Hernan Vasquez a shout out. He made the intro. So thanks, Hernan. Great guy and professional as well.
Definitely. And you probably can't read it because it's not focused on that, but that's Hernan's name next to mine on that 2 Club award from ClickFunnels back there. So
Yep.
great guy and great business partner.
Yeah, I saw the picture next to Russell Branson, so it's pure envy from my end. So that's awesome. So yeah, I love to start by with your story. Why don't you start there?
Yeah, definitely. I kind of came at this from an interesting area or a path. I think like most people, right? We maybe think, oh, we're going to get from point A to point B and we'll just take that direct path instead of the winding looping road that it ends up being. And we end up at point, Z, and, that's how it goes. So that's certainly true for myself. This is not something I ever saw myself doing, but it ended up, self kind of discovery along with some good opportunities. So actually my background, after I got out of the military, went back to school, got a couple degrees in physics, really enjoyed that, physics, math, that was really my jam. I worked as an engineer, developing optics systems, working on things like solid state lasers and thin film coatings, like stuff that goes on firefighter shields and astronomy mirrors and stuff like that. But over time, it kind of became clear to me that something wasn't right. And so really trying to listen to my gut and become better about that, which was kind of tough as an engineer background, very number oriented and very logical. And then being like, what is this? What am I feeling? And, thinking about that and really trying to figure that out. And, started doing some reading around some self-improvement books and looking at people I respected. And, part of it was, who am I spending my time around? What do I want to spend my life doing? It'd been kind of get to point A to point B to point C, get the degree, get a job. That's how you do it. And realizing, there's other ways to do this. And so for me, that was kind of the start of a long path, but that got me into building websites. I looked around and I was like, this is kind of neat. This was, I don't know, 2010 timeframe, and looking at this and being like, maybe I should try this. So that got me into SEO. That's actually how I met Hernan back in the day. A couple other guys too. We ended up forming a company online after a couple of years of doing some training, accountability groups. People told us that, this stuff was so good, you should charge for it. So that's always a good sign. So we did charge for it and kind of went from there. So I'll take a pause there. That's kind of the lead up to kind of where I'm at now.
No, that's awesome. I mean, you went way beyond that than I did back in the day, but I did start in this, like, not physics, but like computer computer engineering, and I did that career for a few years. But I had a startup back then, so I couldn't like keep up, like I couldn't keep like both things at the same time. So then I got a degree in computer science, and I come from like number oriented analytical background, and ended up working later for, I don't know, with an agency, creating content for brands, getting likes, shares, back in the day when everything started, the social thing, it was like, is this like work? I used to code, like I was a developer, like code. And it's like, like they're happy because they have a lot of fans on Facebook back in the day. They have a lot of shares, they have a lot of comments, and it was like, this is easy. And then everything changed, of course. So I know how it feels. It's like, okay, so I used to do this, and now I'm who am I, right?
Yeah, and I should say, just to round out the context, I'd always enjoyed writing. There have been a part of, just I didn't do any sort of formal writing, but as what I did as an intelligence analyst, a lot of that was writing, synthesizing information, summarizing. And so getting into that and then building the websites, that turned out to be kind of a happy accident, right? Because going in, of course, you need content on websites. And so, I mean, approaching this as somebody who had never done this, your audience would be, of course, intimately familiar with content and building websites. But, if they can imagine back to before they'd done all that, it's like, oh, yeah, there's this whole world of, do you need product descriptions? Do you need landing page copy? Do you need, all this other stuff? And so really digging into that years ago was really interesting to me. And it kind of hit that intersection of copy, creativity, but then also the analytical side where it's like, oh, we can actually put this up and you can see how people like it by whether that's visits, it's conversions, rankings, things like that. So that really then kind of pushed me forward down that road.
Yeah. And now you're working for many brands, including many e-commerce ones, right? So physics to e-commerce path.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, from that, we, with the company, we started with Hernan and a couple other guys. We ended up putting together kind of a done for you service store that was based on WooCommerce. And then that was kind of dipping my toes into the e-commerce space. And we'd been, of course, we had a business, we were sending emails. I was running that, been doing that for years. But really getting more onto the e-commerce side. And then that just clicked, really dove into that. We had some really good results. Started working with some new tools. For me at the time, this was years ago, started using Klaviyo, which I'm sure people are familiar with. And then just really getting into that and diving in and seeing what we could do, building a team around that, and then realizing, hey, we've got some extra capacity, we're doing really well with this. Maybe we should help other people out. And so that was really the genesis of the e-commerce email marketing for myself.
Yeah. Clearly, as we probably everyone in the industry knows by now, is that things are like really challenging. We thought COVID was all there was. I mean, for the challenge aspect, and now it's like the inflation, supply chain, and many other crazy things. The e-commerce businesses or the market or the demand, let's say, is contracting like a little bit because it was like there was a huge expansion during COVID, and now probably it's the other effect, right? People are going out more and buying locally as well and going to their old habits slowly, right? So what challenges do you think or see that e-commerce brands are facing nowadays?
Yeah, I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head, is that, we're seeing some challenges with the general economy and, not immune to that, right? You're trying to make more or maintain in terms of revenue with, what you've got. I don't know a ton of people. I know there are some sectors, there's some people, some businesses that are still accelerating, and that's great. But overall you're seeing a slowdown in areas. And so I was kind of thinking about this and something else you said. I went out for a run the other weekend, and I enjoy getting out and doing long trail runs. So I did a 28-mile run. It was supposed to be 24 miles. So I think that's about 45 kilometers. And so I went out there, and part of me, I took a wrong turn and I was getting lost, and I was kind of pissed off at myself. And, I was just like, but something came to mind. I forget who said this. So I forget, this is not my quote. They said, pain is guaranteed, but suffering is optional. And that kind of stuck in my head and, put a smile on my face, because it's kind of goofy. It's a little sadistic, but it's just like, I wanted to do this. I put myself in this situation, and there's going to be pain involved with it. There's no 30-mile run where I go on and I'm just smiling the entire way, but suffering is optional. If I want to get mad, if I want to beat myself up, that's all me. So I kind of think about this too, where it's like, hey, we decided to start this business, whether it's me with my business, me with my agency, you with an e-commerce business. You chose that, but you get to choose which kind of obstacles and which pains you have to deal with. So for me, that's just a little bit of the mindset part. Like, I look at this as we're literally starting up a new business on our own right now, and more of the SaaS space. It's like, okay, we're choosing this. We should be aware of what pains that are going to be down the road, because there will be. there's no free lunch, but how we deal with those is really important. So sorry, kind of a tangent there, but wanted to touch on
No,
that.
it's great. My mom actually is a runner. She runs marathons, and she's like 60 years old, or to be soon 60 years old, and she runs marathons a lot. So I admire her and people who runs like marathons or 20 kilometers, right, or whatever. But it's a passion, right? Or so
Yeah.
they say, and that's awesome. And it's everything you said. It's true. I feel the same way. It's how things happen, or as they say, things happen, but it is how you react to those things what makes a difference as well at the end of the day. And I know many e-commerce owners and directors, and the team in general is frustrated nowadays. But in the end, instead of getting frustrated, listen to the rest of this episode, because we are going to give you advice on how to level up the marketing, because you need to level up things. You're probably sitting down and expecting the revenue to come, or you're sitting down and saying, oh, I have a low ROAS. Guess what? There are a lot of levers that you can pull actually to get that up. Not every single dollar is made on the front end. There are a lot of revenue comes from the back end, and we are going to talk about that. So why don't we start with, let's say, email marketing, right? Because it's one of the probably the levers that most e-commerce brands are not actually used to their benefit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a huge one. And again, I can't attribute this. I just sticks out in my head. I haven't put it out there, but I see it all the time. It's like a 38 or 42 to 1 return on your spend for email marketing. And so what I want to know is kind of the engineer in me. I've got to hunt this down and be like, what do they qualify as a spend in email marketing? Like, are they just talking about the email tool or hiring a writer? Anyways, the end result though is if you send emails, generally you're going to make more revenue. And I think a lot of companies out there at this point, the bar's been raised over the past 4 or 5 years. Everyone has got some sort of, abandoned cart series, or they know that, hey, Black Friday holidays, I need to be sending out some emails. But it goes past that. And I think that, what we can do is kind of merging productivity into this is talking about consistency. And I see that missing from some of the businesses is, hey, are you sending on a regular basis? Have you tried changing that up? Do you know what works? Are you sending once every 2 weeks? Are you sending 5 times a week? And is there a reason behind that, right? Instead of just kind of going for it and doing whatever. But beyond that, I think just any sort of consistency is always a really important part of this. And I want to talk about a process. I wrote an article about, it's called the API process. And I bring this up now because I think this really applies both to email marketing, but you can take this process and really apply it anywhere. To give away the big secret here, the API, what that stands for, it's not like a computer programming API, but it's audit, planning, and implementing. So this can be kind of fractal in the sense that you could look at this as a huge, big, complicated process. Yes, you can hire me to do this for your business, for the email marketing, but I mean, you could do this during a team meeting. This could be about yourself, your personal life, but just this idea of, hey, let's audit or gather the information, like what's really going on at this thing I'm looking at. And for now, I'm going to focus on the email marketing. So we would say, okay, let's look in our account. I'll say, let's say they're using a Klaviyo account. How many flows do we have built out? How much money are they making? What's the open rates? Get a feel for this stuff and then go, okay, well, now we've got an idea. We kind of know where we're at. Well, let's plan. Let's look at that. What's the next step? Well, for me personally, I always advise double down on what's working, right? I generally go in and I want to see either 2 things. I want to see what's working well, so you can do more of that, just like I want to do in my personal life. Also, are there any holes? I think about it like multiplication. Let's say you rank yourself, let's call it, you have 5 flows you should have, and you give yourself a score of 1 to 10, and you multiply that out, and that's your end score. If you have a 0 anywhere in there, that's really bad, right? Because when you multiply everything together, it just ends up at 0. So look for any really big gaps or missing things, and then things you can double down on, and then go through and you can prioritize that stuff. And I've got a article about this. I'll give you the link to, Brian. But it includes kind of a planner where you can go through and help yourself identify which of these you should work on next, because that's also tough when you come up with a list of 15 things and that's like, oh crap, like what should I work on right now? What's the top 2 things I should get my team going on? So having a little bit of a way to kind of triage that and get started is important. And then implementing, of course, is, I think, fairly self-explanatory, but just getting after it and getting some of that stuff done. But again, this stuff kind of applies at all levels. I think it's really, really, really important.
Yeah. And do you see email marketing as a one or two-way street with your
In what way do you mean?
uh, in the way of communicating with your customers? Do you see like you as a brand communicate with them, or you trying to engage in a conversation so you can open a space for them to communicate with you directly through
Oh,
the email?
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Two-way street. And does it have to be? No. Are you going to get better results if it is? Yes, always, right? Relationships are super important. Trust, authority. If people know, like, and trust you, then, you're always going to do better than the person who doesn't. But are there brands out there who are intensely successful, incredibly successful, and don't necessarily do that? I would say, sure, you can do that. But if you can work in any sort of personal two-way street into any of your communications, that's a great way to go about it.
Yeah. And one thing you said, um, I think everything you said is important, but one thing you said, I'd like to go deeper if you want, and it's the consistency part of it, because someone buys from you in the first place, even if it is from an ad or from any acquisition channel, or even from an automated flow through Klaviyo or any other tool, right?
Mhm.
But then, I mean, what's next for them as a customer? Are you not going to engage with them any longer? Is that it? Is that the end of a relationship? So if you don't have a game plan there, and that's why I love the concept of API, if you don't have a game plan there, uh, how do you expect to grow your business, right?
Oh,
So
exactly. And yeah, that's, part of the API process, because that's what we do. For instance, I just went in, and this morning before we hopped on to record this, I was going over an audit that my team member did. And, I go through and I'm going to record a quick overview of it for the potential client and let them know. And, it was interesting to see. I'm like, these guys are killing it. I'm like, this is a 7-figure a month, doing great revenue, have most things in Klaviyo, but they still have some like really big holes. And so it was really interesting to go in and see that. And, in our minds, we always think, oh, this person's doing better. This brand's got it all covered. Like, nobody's perfect. Everybody can do this. And, maybe you do this on the ops side once a year, or, you look at your social media, quarterly. But I think this type of a process is important to do, because the best of us, the biggest companies, the best companies, the most successful, always have room for improvement.
yeah, and I know, before you say anything, I know the answer depends on many factors, but for someone who has never tried email marketing or a part of it, I don't know, they're doing I don't know, the automated flows, but not the campaigns, or the other way around. Are there any stats that you have from some brands you have worked with? Not the ones they are going to get, but some stats you have had, like say, hey, what they can expect in percentage of the overall revenue to get from, I don't know, from the campaigns, from email marketing. Should they send like all campaigns promoting products? Should it be more about, I don't know, adding value, or 3 emails adding value, one selling something? Or I know there's probably not a formula per se, but do you have any stats or advice on that?
Yeah, definitely, Brian. I think the first thing I will say is you're totally right. It depends. But, what you can say overall is that you can see things like 20% to 50% or more kind of revenue boost to the revenue from email marketing. So again, totally depends on the business. I've seen automated flows dominate the increase on some businesses. I've seen campaigns do way better in others. And I haven't seen, a big trend across certain industries. So that might be available. Maybe someone's done like a big compendium, or maybe one of these larger email service providers has that, but I haven't seen it if it exists. What I will say though, is, let's take that example, because I think this happens. Maybe you've got an abandoned cart email set up. You send out some sales emails, and, you've got a couple other things going on, but what could you do next? And, it's like you said about being consistent. Maybe try sending out a weekly email. And, my caveat here is do what you can consistently do. And depending on you, your business, the team, whatever kind of works and that you can easily do, start there. I'm a big fan of this, and this is a big, I'll use my air quotes, productivity hack, in the sense that make it easy for yourself, because you can always add more. Like, don't go out of the gate and say, we're going to send daily emails, because that's probably not going to work out, and it's going to be a real pain in the butt. So I think, say something that's easy, maybe once every week, and then go in. And if you haven't read a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie, famous old book. But it's really good. And the basic line of this is just genuinely showing interest and making it about them, not you. And a lot of us get into that habit when we're writing, not because we're bad people or because we're completely self-absorbed, but we're human beings and our favorite subject is ourselves, right? And it's because we know ourselves the best, or we know about ourselves. And so a lot of times just keeping this in mind and say, if I was getting this email, what would I want to hear? Can do it. Or if I was going to send this email to Brian, what would he actually want to know? Would he want to know that my business just got a bigger warehouse? Like, I don't know, probably not. He probably doesn't care. But if he got an email that says, hey, we've increased our warehouse size and now we can ship all of your favorite, whatever it is you're about to buy, in 24 hours instead of a week, hey, maybe that's a good reason to send an email, right? Just making it more about them.
Yeah. Yeah, totally right. Yeah. So probably not. We can discuss sales funnels, probably not as in depth as email marketing, but I know that it's another thing that is pretty big, right? Nowadays, depending whether you have an e-commerce brand or not. But I'm just curious, how do you see that an e-commerce brand can apply a sales funnel?
Sure. I think there's two things. One, I would say, and I see this missing a lot of the time, or I don't know, I'll just say done poorly, but I can't really quantify that. But taking these ideas of order bumps and upsells, I think that that's missing a lot of times, and it doesn't have to be overdone. You don't have to offer someone 5 upsells and make them click through and close all that. But if you're not offering some sort of upsell or an order bump, and by that, just for the people who may not be familiar with the terms, the order bump is generally at the time of purchase. You can click a checkbox, add it to your order before you complete checkout. An upsell would be after you've completed that initial purchase and then showing them something else. So kind of two things there with the order bump. Really, what I find works well is going to be something that's generally, but not always, lower price, but it's got to be a real no-brainer. So like sub $10, again, this all is relative to kind of what you're selling, but I've seen stuff around the $10 mark work really well, make it high value and make it complement the product that you're selling. So you don't want it to kind of be in competition. You want it to just be a nice add-on. And then with the upsells, you can get a little bit more creative with that. Again, you don't want to say, hey, buy this so that your product works, at the best it can, but maybe it's like, hey, do you want to get some sort of a better result? Or once you've solved the problem that now you have solved with this product, here's the next thing you're going to need. You should buy that now. So I think that that's the first one.
Yeah, personally, there are probably two. There are a few of them, but two that I can mention now quickly. I mean, use case scenarios, like from clients in the agency that we've seen funnels working pretty well for e-commerce brands. And both of them had in common that probably it was really complicated to browse the products. So for example, one is a beauty brand for men. So beard, hair products, and all stuff. So depending on the skin color, on the hair color, on the type of whatever. So you needed to choose what was best for you. You weren't interested in browse like colors for a t-shirt or anything like that. It wasn't similar because they asked you many questions, right? So if you have a lot of gray hair or not, and blah blah blah, right? It was like 9 products for men. So they implemented a quiz. We didn't. They quiz, right? And it was great. In fact, the quiz worked pretty well. And without the quiz, it didn't work well at all because people were actually, okay, so how, I don't know, What's your skin color? What's your hair color? What's your blah blah? What's the shape of your beard? What's the shape of whatever? And then they will say, "Oh, this is the perfect product for you," and you just click checkout, buy, or whatever, and you you continue the rest of the day, and you have the product soon to use and enjoy.
Yeah.
The other one, sorry, you wanted to say something?
No, no, I love it. Quizzes can be such a great way, especially when you're kind of fighting overwhelm like that, or it's a product, like you said, where so many people are like, I'm not sure which one's the right one. And if you give people too many options,
Yeah.
they're out of there, right?
Yeah, the other one was probably kind of similar, but make it short. It was like a flower shop, national flower shop in the US, and they used to serve only wholesale or I don't know, wedding planners, all stuff, or interior designers, decorators, all the stuff. But then they wanted to serve the end customer as well. So when they started serving the end customer, they have like a lot of options. The goal was to serve people who was going to celebrate something, I don't know, baby shower, their wedding, or probably was for their home. So probably they wanted to buy only one flower, or probably 1,000 flowers, right? An
Mm.
entire flower arrangement for an event. So choosing one by one, probably I would be being confused. You know, I got married a few years ago, and I could have been confused. It's like, how many do I need? So it's like crazy. So then, yes, in that case, we proposed to implement a funnel, which worked pretty well. And it was like, hey, why don't we say, hey, are you planning an event, or do you want them for your home? What type, if they said an event, what type of event? I don't know, wedding, birthday, baby shower, whatever. Is it a wedding? Is it in an open space, or how big is the place, or whatever? And then at the end result, we'll propose you with some bundles. Probably, would this option work best for you or not? Or do you like better these colors, or this type, or this type? And then it's a guided thing. And then by the end, it's like, okay, this bundle, not these products, this bundle is for you. Probably you will need three, because you said that it will be like, I don't know, 30 square meters, whatever, you know? So,
Yeah, yeah.
so that was a different thing, because you need to see, you don't need to, I mean, probably a rule of thumb is to not overcomplicate things ever for anything in life. And in this case, I think the same applies. Probably you don't need a different funnel for your e-commerce, or probably you do. It depends on the logic. But if you feel that you can make your users or customers' life easier by guiding them, or offering them something that could go well with what they chose, or whatever, right?
Definitely. And I still do this. And I'm sure a lot of people listening hopefully do the same thing. But I know it took me a while to realize that I needed to. And now it's just second nature. But when I go online, I'm taking screenshots. I'm taking Loom videos of like, ooh, like I opened this email. I found myself on the checkout page. What happened? Because, like, right, you get sucked in. It was so good. It's like, wow, I want to record this. This is amazing. I want to see what's going on. And then that can kind of help inform your own ideas. I think that's a huge part of this is like, yeah, clone what's working. And of course, make it your own. Don't just copy it, but like, hey, what got you to click, yes, you want this? Why'd you add this to your order? Yeah, that may be something that could work for your business.
And to add on top of this, about all the, like, the ever changing landscape of, let's say, the advertising world, which
Mhm.
is what we do, is zero party data. Basically, for those listening who don't know what zero party data is like the information that the users willingly enter on your website, because we are losing data after the iOS 14 change, 15, then the cookieless world coming soon. So we need to collect data from customers, and a quiz or a different sort of funnel not only will allow you to get more revenue, but also more data from your customers. Because if you don't need it now, you will need it soon, because it won't be, it's not easy currently as it was before. It will get harder and harder to get third party data accurately. So you better start collecting yours as well.
Definitely. And I mean, the more you know too, right, about your customers, the better you can tailor the experience. So win-win. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think the other thing too, I wanted to say on the funnel side of things, was another idea that I don't see done enough, which scares me a little bit because I generally like to see things being done because that means it's working. But I think that there's a spot for this, and I've seen it done a few times really well. And a lot of companies or e-commerce businesses who are selling physical goods, what I see missing is a digital product. And I think I understand it. We get so into the mindset of like, hey, we sell. I don't know. I'm just going to make this up. We sell coffee beans. And like, that's what we do. And it's like, great. But people who buy coffee beans, that's not their whole world. Like, they don't just exist in this weird land of like, this person only buys coffee beans. They're interested probably in coffee, tea, other kitchen appliances. Maybe they do all this other stuff. So we don't have to go too far. But within that, like, man, maybe there's something they would be interested that's digital that would then cost you zero delivery costs or next to it, that you could provide them and would be a great value. Like, this is getting pretty out there, but like, a short video course on like how to, actually grind and brew your own coffee, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty simplistic, but the idea being there's all these opportunities out there, and the other way around for people who are doing more information related products, adding in something physical into the mix, I think can be something that can be done really well. I think a lot of times though, we just get siloed into like, this is what we do, this is what we sell, and there are some missed opportunities.
Yeah, I totally agree. In fact, in a previous episode with Vance Morris, he's a former 10-year Disney executive, and he he discussed how to create wow experiences for customers and team members as well. And he said, like, for example, he wrote a book. He said, okay, I'm sending, you know, via mail my book to, those who buy it or those who I want to send it to, in a
Mhm.
probably cardboard box, like plain without anything there. So probably I will design something nicer. And then, hey, those who are buying a book, probably I would write a thank you note. And
Mhm.
hey, since I wrote a thank you note, and probably they are taking notes, probably I will include like a pen. So he was like giving an example on how to create more like wow experiences and say, okay, as you said, how do we what this is something I read also in the in the book Alex Ormosi released earlier
Mm.
this year.
Yeah, the
Probably
$100
made
million offers. Yeah.
it's a great book. It's like think what your customers are going to want before and after they buy whatever you offer. And it's exactly what you said. It's like, hey, if they're buying coffee beans, what are they going to do with the beans? Or any other meal or whatever. They people selling supplements or teas or whatever. It's like people are going to want something. So why don't you partner up with someone? You don't need to know the whole thing. You can partner up with a barista or anyone that knows whatever. I mean, your space is, and then you can actually get more, their audience as well. We can actually get more people interested in, because as we discussed also with the e-commerce director at Overtime recently, he's like how to leverage collaborations, because people want a brand that stands for something that collaborates with other brands or influencers, and is not only people are not only buying products anymore, they are buying experiences, right? So
Yeah.
if you do what you said, you make that experience whole, and not only like I'm buying coffee
Yeah, it's too
beans.
funny. I'm smiling because I was looking. I was like, yeah, I was gonna say on April, I saw the podcast on April 14th you had with this. And like that to me is a great way, I'm gonna go back. I haven't listened to it. I just saw the title and was like, yeah, collaborating with other brands. And you're talking about Alex Hormozy, like before and after. If you can't provide that experience yourself, at least you could refer people, and then you're building goodwill by doing that. Like
Yeah,
for me, I don't do PPC. So, and like, I'm never going to, but I don't just tell my clients like, well, tough, I guess you'll need to go find somebody. Like, no way, I'm going to refer them or at least point them, to a few
exactly.
people. Right. So like we wouldn't do that. So, on the e-commerce side, I think you can do the same thing. And that's actually one that I recently did was I connect clients with each other, or even if they're not clients anymore, if I think they have overlapping interests, like one is a fitness I'll call it fitness equipment manufacturer. One's in the fitness kind of meal space. So not at all the same, but related industries. And I talked together or separately with them and said, hey, how about you guys promote each other? Just one email, test it out, see what people's reactions is. And maybe this could be a partnership or an affiliate partnership down the road. And they were like, yeah, great, let's do it. So literally as we speak, those emails are being created. We're going to send them out in July, and then that could become referral partners for each other. So some cool opportunities there that I think anyone can do. It doesn't take someone like me.
Yep, I love it. And that's probably this, we mentioned a lot actually of things that you can, I mean, you guys listen, you can go ahead and implement, but there's more to it. I mean, there's another way you can level up the marketing. I know sometimes, most of the times we forget about what the end user sees. So if you're writing something in an email, if you're writing something in the ad copy, like we tend to forget sometimes and try to do it fast, and probably we are like staring at a blank page, and we don't know how to get off that feeling, and that stage. So
Yeah.
what do you do to help with that?
Two things. Anyone who writes copy, if they don't have a swipe file, they need one. I'm going to leave it at that and move on to the next one. You can Google what a swipe file is if you don't know what it is. But there's been an explosion of AI tools over the last probably year or two. If you guys aren't familiar with that, you can search. One of them is Jesper. It used to be called Jarvis.ai, I believe. I've been using that since for a long time. And a word of caution right away for anyone who just goes off and grabs this tool and says, Adam said that it can write all my copy for me. What we use it for is for generating ideas. I find it to be much faster than me or any other human being I know at coming up with ideas, right? Like asking it, hey, come up with a subject line about coffee roasting videos, maybe. And it'll come up with some, but generally I haven't seen a lot where I'm like, ooh, I'm just going to copy paste this. It generally takes some massaging, or it just stimulates the ideas of like, oh, I see in these two subject lines it came up with some idea there that's good. I'm going to combine it, tweak it a little bit, and that's what I want to use. And I think that you can use that for a lot of other areas. You can use this stuff for product descriptions, landing page copy. It can write titles, headlines, all sorts of stuff. And so I think this really helps you avoid that blinking cursor right on the Google Doc. Dreading writing. I know a lot of people don't like it, but a lot of it is just the momentum. So use these tools to kind of get over that obstacle, get the momentum going, get some ideas going, and then you can go from there and either write your own based on that idea, or maybe tweak what it puts out. Make sure you put a little time and effort into that, polish it up a little bit.
That's awesome. Yeah, so I think that this been a very interesting conversation, very actionable episode actually. So it was a pleasure to have you on, and I wanted to ask you, where can people go to learn more about you and your company, of course.
Definitely, Brian. Yeah, likewise. Great to talk to you. Thanks for all the good questions. And heading over to oasisoptimization.com is the place to go. If you'd like to find out about the API process, that's oasisoptimization.com/API. And recently wrote a book. So I'll do a shameless plug here because I think it's worthwhile. If somebody's still listening to the episode, grabbing this, the e-commerce email marketing playbook, you can grab it in digital or print via Amazon. So if you're interested in finding out more, I go into a lot more detail. How to write, what to write, designing sign-up forms, email campaigns, flows. And it's really meant to be for the business owner, not the email marketing specialist, to give you an overview so you could potentially start doing it yourself, or make sure that if you're hiring either an agency, you've got your own team, whatever it is, you've got a good overview of it so you can manage it well.
Yeah, and you guys listen, remember that if you go to fitgrowthmachine.com, you'll find all the episodes there. And if you click on this one, you will find the show notes. So yeah, everything will be there, all the resources mentioned, as well as a summary of this episode. But you won't need that because you just listen to it. But yes, you'll be you'll be using the resources, so that will be great as well. So Adam, it was a pleasure again to have you on. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, man.